Test, test, test. Hey, it works! Okay, quiet, BZ. Let people get into the chat. Let people get into Facebook. Let people get into YouTube. We're not starting Spreaker just yet. Calm down, dude. Calm down. All right? Okay. Can I go yet? It's not 8 o'clock. Stop. Guess what? It's 8 o'clock on the left coast. And it's 11 o'clock on the right coast. And nobody knows what time it is in Bolivia.
Damas y caballeros, chicos y chicas, niños de todas las edades, bienvenidos al Blower Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, con el pensamiento correcto de un cerebro izquierdo, haciendo el trabajo que los American Media Maggots no hacen, operando detrás de las líneas enemigas de la California ocupada, en vivo y en directo, desde Estudio 23, de la vasta, rica, voluminosa y detestable SHR Media Network. Aquí está la mayor decepción de SHR, el Zeppelin Bloviating.
I still get a kick out of that.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
You magnificent bastard, I read your book.
I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Captain.
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 Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain.
No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out of me yet.
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Here we go. Love the bass on this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that petrifying edifice. And late at night, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, palatial, and effulgently bulbous SHR Media Studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that mentally destitute column structure aforementioned. And I gotta tell you, what you're about to hear for the next 2 hours is and consists of nothing but my opinion and nobody else's. I own it. I gotta tell you also this, because of the fear porn that has gripped this nation, the Saloon is no longer open in the front as the city of Sacramento has pulled my license, but I am still serving stiff drinks, facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense out the back door. And we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon, damn it, where the speech is free but the booze is not. In 2020, I am done with compromise and bipartisanship. This is the new age of modern political warfare. The leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots all want you dead, or at minimum jobless, bankrupt, bereft of a future, and quivering in the fetal position under your desks, waiting for your local leftist governors and mayors to bestow a modicum of freedom, dribs and drabs, when it pleases them. Those are always to be taken away also when it pleases them, or when you have the temerity to push back or reoffend. Altogether, too many people are waiting to trade employment and freedom for this, and this has got to end. They have forgotten, too many people, too many cops have forgotten their oaths. If our Constitution and Bill of Rights don't prevail, we have absolutely lost this nation, and it won't be coming back. Because if we lose freedom here in the United States of America, where else are we going to find it around the world? I think you know the answer to that. Now, in the first hour, I'm going to be talking to Angel Espino. He is a first-time guest. Treat him nicely. Serve him the best beer we got here in the Saloon. Then in the second hour, have I got some great happy stories. I've got some breaking news about Wuhan 19, some happy stories, great stuff, great audio cuts. But first this hour, tonight's guest, Angel, he's called the Jackal Espino. He is a unique cat who happens to have his own radio network, PSN, the public streaming network, and he has a fairly extensive history in radio, video, and all sorts of media production. So I first heard of Angel Espino from a friend of the show here in the Saloon, Kaiser Schuff. And I thought, one day I should have him on here in the Saloon. Oh, hey, in chat at SHR, Mike, welcome to chat, and the Alaskan, welcome in chat. Boyd, welcome in chat, and I see, Mike, that you're over in chat and Facebook, too. So I got to tell you this in all transparency. Kaiser recommended that I should contact Angel Espino to see about getting on his network. But, okay, as it turns out, and nobody familiar with me should be shocked about this at all, I'm a techno-Luddite, and I can't figure out how to get the right software and make it talk to the software on Angel's network and all that stuff. So I admit it. I'm not on his network. I'm a moron. But I looked into Angel Espino's websites and media, and I thought, this guy has a real interesting story. And I bet I can get some of it out of him tonight. And I bet some stories he's never told anybody else or before. Maybe yes, maybe no. Time will tell. Plus, Angel Espino, like me, has a real love of radio. Not television, not video, but radio. Like my love for radio. And numerous times people have told me in no uncertain terms that I possess the quintessential face manufactured for radio. Okay, guilty, got it, one each. So there's a lot to talk about tonight in the first hour, so let's get to it. Angel Espino, thank you for being here tonight, sir. Thanks for staying up late, because again, you're on the East Coast, and welcome to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, sir. And of course, because this is how it rolls, Technology is going here. Let's do this. Okay, no technology. So I'll tell you what, I think I know what happened. Angel, can you hang up and call me back, or I will call you back and we'll see what happened, because I see that this is the right area code. So let me try doing this. Folks, it wouldn't be a saloon without something exactly like this. Okay, let me try calling back and see if this works. There we go. Now I'm getting a ring. Oh, it's going to work this time. I'm pretty sure.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Angel, I knew what it was. Sometimes
There we go.
the first time people call for whatever reason, my Bluetooth says, I don't really want to talk to them right now. Then I call them back, or they call me back, and it works. So, you didn't hear this great intro that I had for you.
No, I heard the introduction. I was going to say two things.
Yeah.
You might want to get some Colgate for that Bluetooth. That seems like it's getting rotten. You can't go to the dentist right now. I understand, but go to Colgate, brush it. Blue, maybe black.
It could be
red. Soon it'll be white again.
It could be.
Two. It's the first time in an intro that I've been said to be too ugly for TV, but right for radio, which I 100% agree with.
No, that's me. Dude, that's not you. That is me all over. Literally, swear to God.
I saw the picture of us together, and I'm like, that could be me in about maybe 5, 10, 20 years.
Okay, here's a true story. Me and some black dude are in a grocery store last week. I don't know him from anywhere. And we have to wait to get liquor in the liquor cabinet, which is all locked up in this store. I'm a vodka guy. So there's a little button to be pressed there, and I go and push the button. Ding dong. And then some robot voice says, "Come to the liquor aisle. There's someone waiting to get drunk." And so we wait, and this black guy, we wait, and we josh each other. And the dude comes around the corner to open it up. And this guy had the greatest line. He says, "See this white guy right here? Do you see how long his beard is? That's how long we've been waiting for you right now." I liked it. Okay, so first things first. Can you tell people your websites, where to visit your productions, and your social media, please? Because we will get into your show. We're going to get into your network, but just let people know if they want to listen to you and find you, where can they do that?
Easy. Just look up my name, angelespino.com.
Okay.
ANGELESPINO.com. That's my main website. If you want to listen to me live, I'm live every Sunday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, over on psn-radio.com, which is a website in a station that I own and I run since 2010. We own the company. It's really my company, and part of it is owned by George Rodriguez, who also has Soul Flow Radio. And we've been in partnership for the last 10 years doing the radio stations. My show airs on both networks. Soul Flow is Florida-based only, so it's not something that, that you would hear a lot of shows on there that are from outside of the area. They stick to only Florida-based shows. It's a tradition they've had since before 2010, when they had Neil Rogers and whatnot, which is the reason that network got started. Neil Rogers was on AM radio for about 30 years. He's actually one of the mentors that myself and George had. George was his producer for 24 years, something like that, on AM radio. They had the number one show in all South Florida on AM radio. And when they got started with the network, Neil was kind of older. He was already getting bad health. He ended up passing away shortly after they started the network. But George continued doing the network, and me and him met about a year and a half before Neil passed away. and about a year and a half before, and we started working together on the websites and on the network, and we partnered up then, and we've been, kind of like trying to make the networks, have their own identity, because, he wanted to do software only, and I wanted to do something that opened up a little broader. That's why we have both networks, and we're kind of like helping each other out.
I want to read this, but the rest of the show is dissect it a little bit, and then I've got a ton of questions, and we're going to go into show prep, radio, all sorts of stuff. I do have 15 pages of questions, because as per normal, if I'm not over prepared, I'm not nothing. So this is a bio from your website. It says, a host of my own radio show, which airs on PSN Radio, as well as a producer of music, film editing, and aspiring film director. I was born by the legal name of Angel Espino, but my close friends know me as the Jackal, a name given to me in the 90s by a friend who passed away since then. I got into music, entertainment back then, and radio in the following decade. While I was a lifelong fan of radio talk show hosts by the likes of Art Bell, Phil Hendry, Neil Rogers, SoFlo Radio's own George Rodriguez, and a few others, which I enjoyed over the years. I never thought of actually being the host until he helped my friend with co-hosting duties on a podcast back in 2008, and soon after was struck with the urge to produce and host my own 2-hour show. Since starting my online show, I've tried to become a vocal personality on online radio, and I have interviewed some of the best people in a vast range of subjects. While the subject of ufology, we're definitely coming back to that, is very important to him. He likes to deal with a wide range of subjects, which covers everything from entertainment to ufology and politics. It says, you're interested in directing films in the future. You're working on a first couple of stories for scripts, which you hope to be turning into some feature films. But regardless if it's music, radio, or films, one thing I know for sure, I'm not going away. So Angel Espino, let's start to unpack that a little bit. But let's first start at the start. There's not a whole lot about you on your website and your background, but I understand that you were born in Cuba. Were you born there that you remember anything about Cuba, or were you, in other words, you were born in Cuba, what happened after that? What was that like?
Well, I was born in 1977, so you can imagine I didn't have much memory. I got here in 1980 during the Mariel boat lift.
Okay.
Actually, it was kind of ironic because I died 5 minutes before the boat hit shore and landed.
Holy crap.
And I was passed out for maybe 5-10 minutes. As my mother was screaming, trying to get paramedics to help me out. Wasn't breathing. That was cold. Paramedics grabbed me. Actually, I was probably the second person that was off of the boats because of the way I was in the condition I was in. Plus, I was covered in chicken pox from coming from Cuba. And they rushed me immediately and put me in the ambulance, started working on me, and I was revived. But I was told I was cold blue for, which means dead, for about 5, maybe 10 minutes after they pulled me out of the boat. And I was revived in Florida, in Mariel. And I don't have many memories. You can imagine I was 1.5, 2 years old. I don't have many memories of, that era.
Right.
Just stories and what my parents have told me growing up over the years. It's always been kind of a mystery to me because, I've always wanted to go home and visit my land. But unfortunately, it's not just that it's a communist country and I can't go back. Literally, my family on my father's side is issued, mandate not to go because of our family history. One of my cousins, his name is Nelson Molina Espina. You can look him up on Google and everywhere. He spent years in Cuban prison for protesting the government, and he raised a lot of hell. And his only protest was against the treatment of the Cuban people. And before that, there's a lot of political things that my family had been doing to try to oust the Castro regime. And now, Fidel's dead. So it's been years since they've been active. But for a long time, they were very, very vocal. And pretty much my family was banned from setting foot in the island once they had to release my cousin by force because we had churches and other state government and Indiana Frost and a bunch of people got involved to make it happen. And, bless everybody who poured their hearts into getting that man out of prison. But he was tortured for years in there. And, it's always been something that it's been tough for me because I always look at what happened in Cuba over the last 70 years, and I see that slowly creeping up here in the U.S. with the socialism and, all these leftists and a lot of the young people in this country that are completely losing their minds with democratic socialism and thinking that's the right thing and wanted to change the fabric of this country. And I've always said, look, I'm Latin, I'm Cuban, and I've gotten this before, you should be for this kind of a change. I'm like, why is that? And I'm like, because you're Latin, you should be Democrat. You should be for what's happening. Why would I want to come to a country that is free and bring the same kind of nonsense and BS to ruin my country? For 70, 80 years, 90 years, whatever it is, it's still going on. It doesn't make any sense. And to me, that's ridiculous. And when I see people that are born in this country and they're taking everything they have here for granted, it's a sad situation for me.
Okay, you just went to about 70 of my questions that I was going to ask, but I knew this.
I tend to do that.
That's okay. That's okay. This is really cool because I sensed something about you that I didn't know, and I don't know if you've told that story before. I would guess you have, but I just kind of inherently knew there was something really unique and cool about you, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you here. So you moved from Cuba to Florida, and you're living in Florida today, and we conversed back and forth. We sent texts just before the show, and actually, we're kind of lucky to have you here right now because you guys are on flood watch where you are in Florida.
Right. Yep. In fact, it was funny because we lost power a couple times earlier today, and the internet was going in and out, and there was thunderstorm and all kinds of stuff. Just 20 minutes ago, it stopped raining, and I was like, I hope it doesn't rain the whole night. I don't want to miss the show. And sure enough, it stopped raining about 20 minutes ago. But before that, you would think the heavens are opening up, and we're about to get 40 days and 40 nights of rain. It was just going kind of nutty outside.
So you were born in Cuba. You grew up in Florida. When you were younger in Florida, did you have your eye on becoming anything in particular when you grew up?
Well, I wanted to be a living, breathing Thundercat for a long time, and for a while I wanted to be a member of the G.I. Joe squad, and then I realized when I was about 20 that no, that's going to happen. Then I told my parents I wanted to be an astronaut. And they told me, well, you might as well. Your head's been in the clouds for the last 20 years, so just might as well go into space with it. And that didn't work out too well for me. It turns out fear of heights and astronauts just don't work well together, so that didn't work out either. And then there was sports a little bit, and I tried that, but then it turns out I have no coordination for actual sports. And then I looked in the mirror and I said, well, you can't be a movie star, that's for damn sure. Blind, bald, and, that's not a good way to go through life unless you're Kojak. And so I was like, okay, let me try this radio stuff a little bit. I have been a fan for a long time. Art Bell and Neil Rogers are two of my mentors. Phil Hendry is a third mentor. George is a fourth mentor. That's like my Mount Rushmore of radio hosts that I had listened to when I was a kid. And I remember, being 13, 14 years old and running home and falling down a couple times. But I would get back up and I'd keep running. And when I'd get home, after scraping my knees and bruising my elbows and then hurting my chin and, crying like a little girl and just sitting there licking my wounds, I would turn on the radio, and sure enough, my friends would be there every single night, paying attention to what was going on. And unfortunately, my parents weren't available much because they were working, during very rough times. I had a brother who was in prison for a long time, and because of that, we lost, any money we had with lawyers and whatnot, and that's another story in itself. But it took us, when we got to this country, we immediately moved to California. after we got here to Miami. We lived there for several years, and that's when my brother started kind of get into a little bit of an issue with certain individuals, gang members. And, my parents were like, let's get out of, California. Let's go somewhere a little safer.
Yeah.
How about Florida, where it's not like Cubans and crime? That's a good idea. And I think my parents had not seen the movie Scarface yet, so they were like, hey, it's going to be safe. A bunch of Cubans in Florida, that's no problem. And, we moved to Florida, big mistake. My brother ended up going to prison for some other stuff down here, which it was ironic. In California, I would have been like, yeah, he probably did that. He's probably guilty of that. Here, he was actually suckered into like some, I don't want to get into the logistics of it, but he got suckered into something that it wasn't even his, and he got in trouble for it, and because he wouldn't snitch on somebody, went to prison. Long story. Either way, he's an idiot for what he got himself into. But because of that, we ended up moving back to Florida, and that's to try to save him. And he ended up going to prison anyway. So that was kind of his fate and destiny. But because of that, I grew up kind of like a lonely child where I had a sibling, but I didn't really have a sibling because it wasn't there. And that's why the radio guys became kind of like my voices that I grew up with. And, nobody was more instrumental, actually, believe it or not, than Art Bell to get me really interested in doing radio when I was a kid, because I had seen a couple of things myself, one in Florida and one in California as a little kid, which I couldn't determine whether there was an airplane or what it was. It just didn't look like a natural aircraft, and I was really small, so I didn't think there was aliens per se. I didn't know what it was, or if it was an aircraft that we had or something like that. But I saw one of the triangle UFO type of things as a kid out in California, similar to what Art described the once on radio. When I heard that, I was like, that's what I saw. Ironically enough, I was in the West Coast. He was in the West Coast. So it must have been very similar to what he saw. And that always captured my imagination. And then I saw the movie Fire in the Sky with Travis Walton. And I was like, okay, now I get it. And I went back and I read his book, and I was like mesmerized. I was like, wow, it's better than the movie. Let me tell you, much better than the movie. For years, I wanted to, talk to Travis and just meet Travis and kind of like get his story from his own point of view. Because I have this thing about me where I like to see if somebody's lying to me. Just I could kind of have a pretty good BS meter. When I speak to certain individuals, and I can tell when they're kind of like BSing their story, or I have that instinct for it. And for years, I looked at his story, and I really wanted to, do something where I could meet him, whether it be a movie, TV, or something. And then when radio came along, the first person I thought of was like, gotta talk to Travis Walton. And I ended up landing an interview with Travis a few weeks later, and I was blown away by the fact that he would do the show. And the fact that he said yes was, enough for me to want to continue. And at that point, I started interviewing other celebrities within the world of ufology, Stan Friedman, Stan Romanek, which I regret now because Stan Romanek has gone through his own nonsense. But Stan Friedman was another great person that I got to meet. Stan Friedman was a gentleman, and he passed away not too long ago, and just a really, really nice man. And, it's funny because I didn't expect for that avenue to open up and have that many people within ufology kind of embrace the show. But after I did a certain amount of episodes, I've done over 1,000 episodes now in the last decade. And in that amount of episodes, you can imagine I've had just about everybody on my show, and from everywhere, every walk of life, not just ufology, but the UFO community has really embraced me for years, and for whatever reason, that's kind of like the group that really has followed along the most. In fact, when I was in the peak of doing the radio stuff 5-6 years ago, when I was really heavy into it, that's when I became aware that Art was doing his show coming back, and he was thinking about doing stuff on the internet, and I was like, man, I gotta talk to Art Bell. And I sent a couple of feelers to the network, and he's on the Dark Matter Digital Network, which is the network that brought him back. And Keith Rowland searched out for me after he heard one of my shows, and he's like, we're doing live content with the shows. I'd love to bring you on board, but you can't curse. Art has that thing, you cannot curse on the air. And I was like, oh, no, don't worry. It's Art Bell. I'm not going to say a dirty word. It'll be clean. And he says, well, if you can do that, we'd love to have you because, we like your show. We like the guest list, this and that. So I brought back a show called Skywatchers Radio, which I had been doing for a bit with a couple of buddies of mine. And we were Art's lead-in show the entire time that he was on the air. In fact, about a year before he got on the air, we started doing our show live on the network and kind of like prepped the network up for him, along with Bill and Nancy Burns of UFO Hunters. I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Burns. He did Future Theater with Nancy and his wife, and they became like family over the years. They're some of the nicest people in the world, and just dealing with them and dealing with Art and Keith and that whole time period was probably the most special in a sense because Art, again, one of my mentors in radio, and Bill Burns became one of my heroes in life. He's just a tremendously gracious human being. Him and Nancy Burns are just some of the best people I've ever met, and that came just by pure happenstance. I wasn't seeking out to meet them particularly, but it's so much happened, and I consider myself lucky to know the Burns.
Angel, I'm going to have to go to a break. Folks, we're talking to Angel Espino. He's the owner of PSN Network, which is the public streaming network. When we come back, he's already answered a bunch of questions, but he's opened a couple of doors that I'm going to walk through. Now, if you think that I'm just going to do politics, just politics with Angel tonight, you'd be wrong. So let's take a break, be right back. And Angel, I got to tell you, you are one cool cat.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense Elite radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I'm live and direct from the sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent SHR Media Studios, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Always spell it with a K, 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast. Yeah, that's right, the Bill Mill at 10th and L Streets, downtown, the Capitol building. If you guys are on Facebook, and if you like articles about firearms, if you are an upholder of the Second Amendment, then I would highly recommend the USGOA, which is the U.S. Gun Owners Association. It's a group you apply to join. Great articles and great folks there if you want to become a member of that group. We're talking tonight to Angel Espino, and he's from Florida. He happens to own PSN, his own radio network. That's called the Public Streaming Network. And if you're looking for something that's just politics, no, it's not just all politics. What I discovered from Angel in the first half hour is that there's some very interesting paranormal stuff, and I want to kind of put it all together. Angel, I got to ask you this. There's a guy I've had on the show before. His name is Alan Thomas. During surgery, he died on the table 3 times. You had an incident not too terribly dissimilar when you were really, really small. From that, do you think that had anything to do with some of the things that you've seen, UFOs, or even have you had any involvement at all with what some people would call the paranormal or the unexplained?
Well, I don't think the craft that I saw had anything to do with my passing as a kid and being reborn or revived. I would say reborn because I feel like I was reborn again an American when we stepped foot into this country. I always felt like that it was a metaphor, leaving the old behind and being reborn in the free world. And so I always say reborn, but I was revived. Now, I don't think that had anything to do with the initial UFO related that I saw. I think, that just happened by pure chance and destiny, where I was meant to see that just to, it's all, to me, everything happens for a reason. And I think that was just a catalyst to get me more and more interested in subjects like that. But I will say this, I did have a incident as a kid.
Okay.
That my whole family was involved in.
Okay.
And that happened that when we moved to Florida. It was shortly before my brother ended up going to jail, about a year before. Or maybe 8 months or 9 months before. We moved into this big house, which is still here. It was a duplex. And we moved in, and as we're moving in, the neighbors are moving out. And we're like, well, that's kind of weird. You know, it's a nice place. The rent was cheap. Each duplex had about 4 rooms. It was a really massive, you know, house. And, you know, they wouldn't say much. They were just in a hurry to leave. And they left their furniture. They took just bare essentials, clothing, you know, some things. And we didn't, you know, I was very small. My parents didn't speak a word of English. And he was trying to communicate with the gentleman who was moving out. You know, why are you guys leaving in such a rush? And the other thing they kept telling him was like, you'll find out. And they skedaddled out of there, and they left. And, you know, we didn't think anything of it. And we thought, well, maybe the place is full of rats or something. You know, maybe that's why they left. And, you know, nothing happened for a few days. And then all of a sudden things started happening. We started hearing noises. My brother was starting getting like touched in the middle of the night, like by something. When he would look, nothing would be there. My first incident was I vividly remember this. I was sitting in the table in the kitchen when Mother was cooking dinner, and her back was towards me. And as she's cooking, you know, doing her thing, I was coloring in the coloring book, and as I would often do until I was about 25, and I always try to color within the edges, by the way.
Of course.
Never outside the edges.
No.
You gotta stay in the lines. And so I'm there, like, you know, going away at this coloring book, and all of a sudden I see my mother's keys literally slide from part of the desk to the other side of the desk, like, slowly. And then it was like very creepy horror movie type of thing where you hear the keys scraping, like, as it's moving around the desk. And it stops literally at the edge. And my mother hears that, and she goes, stop playing with my keys, in Spanish, by the way. And she started yelling at me for messing with her keys. And I'm like, I haven't touched your keys. And she goes, you scraped my keys across the table. Stop doing that. You know, scrape the table. And I kept telling her, Mom, I didn't do that. And she, you know, I thought I was messing with her. She turns around and keeps doing what she's doing. Next thing you know, the keys literally like hop off the table by themselves and fall on the floor. At that point, I even froze because I didn't know what was going on. And you know, my mother was like, see, you dropped my keys, you're going to break it. She had a little ornament on it, and she didn't want to break it. She's like, you're going to break it. This and that. She started, like, you know, going on nuts on me. And I kept saying, Mom, I have my crayon in my hand. I'm holding the book down with the other hand. I haven't moved. That did it by itself. And she goes, oh, you're crazy. That didn't do nothing by itself. You guys are all nuts. She hadn't seen or heard anything at this point. It was my brother and we were really the ones that had seen some things at that point. And, you know, it took her a couple of days until she finally saw something happen. And it freaked her out a little bit, but she didn't think anything of it. She still thought it was just her imagination or our imagination getting to her. And one night I remember seeing the TV going off by itself or turning on by itself. And I was in the living room, and I was walking by, and it just turned on. And I was like, what the heck? So I went, turned it off, and as I'm walking away, I turned back on. And I was like, okay, we have a defective TV. That's what I thought. I didn't think anything as a kid, you know. I didn't know the concept of ghost or anything like that at that point. And or paranormal. I didn't even know that term existed. So I didn't think too much of it, but then I realized that the cable wasn't on, meaning we had no cable TV or nothing like that. But yet it was, instead of just showing like, you know, fuzz or a little snow when you have nothing on, it was showing like an image every time it would pop on, but it would be like a weird image. And I kept turning it off, so immediately, as soon as that happened, I just went to my room, and I was like, okay, this is just weird. So I just left in the room. And a few hours passed, and next thing you know, I hear my brother screaming in the room next door. And it was maybe like 1 a.m. at that point, maybe 2 a.m. And I hear him screaming, and I rushed to his room and turned on the lights. And sure enough, as soon as I turned on the lights, the sheets floated exploded into the air, and my brother ran. I've never seen him run this fast, but he jumped out of bed, ran out the room, ran down the hallway, almost broke the door down to get out of the house, left to the front door, and he didn't come back for about 2 weeks. He literally went and stayed with his father, and I had never seen my brother run that fast. He was like he was a track star. And I was like, what the hell's going on? I had no clue. It turned out he felt somebody punching him in the middle of the night, and the sheets were closed on him, then he couldn't move. When I turned the lights on, he said it was like it lifted off him, and he just ran out the room. I've never seen him terrified before or after. And I've never seen him that scared in my life. I saw a couple of shadows moving in and out of the house, the walls and stuff. And, we found out, we stayed there for maybe 3 months in total, 4 months, something like that. We found out later that the house used to be a funeral home for about 30 years.
Oh.
And it was transformed. Yeah, true story. It was transformed into a duplex, and they had another little house right next to it. And the little house was where they would prep the bodies, and the duplex was where they would come in and have the funeral and keep the bodies or the ashes and urns in certain compartments. In fact, the kitchen was where they would keep most of the urns. The cabinets were made out of this huge marble, thing, and they never changed the cabinets. It was the same cabinets they had when it was a funeral home. They never changed it. They left them because it was really nice design. And they left a bunch of the cabinets from there. And when we found that out, my dad was like, okay, so that explains what we're all kind of experiencing, craziness, voices, things moving, seeing, shadows pass through the wall, TVs turning on and off, sun being punched in the middle of the night. So my dad was like, all right, I'm getting the heck out of here. We moved out. And never had another experience like that again. I could say that I never had something like that happen. I did work years later at a dealership in Florida here, which was about maybe 5 blocks away from the house. And I always kind of had this interest of going back in and trying to see if there's anything there. And the place is still there, but I wasn't, man enough to actually step foot in to knock and say, can I enter your house and see if you got ghosts? Because, nowadays you do that in like a chat. So.
Angel Espino.
It's one of those stories that I will never forget, just because of how weird and it introduced me to a concept of paranormal, which I had no idea even existed back then.
I got to ask you this: when you first experienced that, folks, we're talking to Angel Espino from PSN Network, big network, great guy, and again, I thank you for being here tonight. Just out of curiosity, though. When you started having those encounters, how old were you and your brother?
Oh, geez. I was about maybe 6 or 7 years old when we moved into the house. I was a little kid. Again, I was coloring my coloring book. I was like, standard little kid. I had no clue of a lot of things. And my brother was about, I would say 15, 16. He's a little bit older than I am.
Okay.
I was kind of like the last, incident my parents had, put it that way. I was kind of, like every parent, or a lot of parents have the golden child, the love child. I was kind of like the incident that should have never happened, but it kind of did. And they were like, well, he's alive. Might as well keep him.
That's right. Like my parents did when I grew up, when they didn't have a place to put me, they told me later, many years later, they'd just open a drawer and put me in a drawer, which was already had a bunch of clothes in it. And they wouldn't shut the drawer, thank God. I would never have known anyway. Folks, we're talking to Angel Espino tonight. And the reason I asked the thing about the age, there's a certain age of susceptibility when things can sometimes occur in homes involving kids, which may be paranormal, maybe involvement, poltergeists, etc. And that's primarily why I was concerned about the age range. Now, you've said, let's see, what do we got? Okay, we got about 12 more minutes. Okay, so you've said that you ideally love radio. Radio is your gig. Now, you've moved into production. You've got radio in particular that really enthuses you? Is it the collection of creativity that's required, or does it have more to do with it's a lot of your background, it's a lot of your history, it's what you enjoyed and heard when you were growing up?
Honestly, I just like to hear myself talk.
Okay, that's easy.
No, it honestly it stems from just being a fan of the medium for so long, and it just always spoke to me for some reason. Movies, TV, I love that stuff. Radio's always been my number one love. Like I said, I was the kid who ran home and started listening to sports radio or even political radio. I listened to Rush Limbaugh for years. I didn't imagine a 12 or 13-year-old kid going home and listening to Rush. It doesn't happen very often. Or listen to Art Bell or listen to talk radio. And most kids outside trying to play with their friends, I was always trying to tune into different radio stations and listen in. And it was just something that just kind of came to me as a kid. Mostly just from boredom, because my parents weren't around much. So it was either go out and get in trouble or, be home and listen to radio, watch TV, and let my imagination kind of go wild with what's going on there and stay out of trouble. I learned a lot, honestly, from seeing my brother get into trouble over the years, and I tried to avoid being, the second coming of what he went through, and I tried my hardest to stay out of trouble, and radio was a big, help for that. And sports also. I mean, I trained martial arts for a long time as a kid. That was a big catalyst for me to stay away from getting into trouble. And I can honestly say, and I'm 42 now, and I've never been in any major incident with the law. I've never been in prison. I don't do drugs. I'm partly almost a vegetarian at this point. And I try to stay as clean as possible, just because you never know. One day I might want to make a run for Senate or Congress, or maybe I want to be the head of a McDonald's locally. I don't know. But I don't want my background to come back and say, oh, well, see, you did this and this and this. So I've always kind of tried to stay as clean as possible. And also, while my parents were hardworking, they weren't around much. I will say this. They were very loving, and I had great parents growing up, and they never denied anything that I needed growing up, even when they weren't around themselves physically because they were out working really hard. Anytime I needed anything or any need for school, personal, whatever, my parents were always there. So I could always say that I wasn't a case of having bad parents. I had probably the best parents you could imagine. My mother was literally a saint. And not just in my eyes. I mean, if you listen to her story, and she's passed now, but if you were ever to listen to her story, it demands being a book by itself, because she lived an amazing life. It was an incredible woman, and without her, my father in my life, I would not be where I'm at right now as a person. But the love for the medium just kind of it's something that just happened. I always look at it like it was just destiny, that I was kind of meant to search that out. While I do love writing scripts, and I do want to become a filmmaker and also as well, but radio's always been the number one love, honestly, when it comes to entertainment or any sort of medium. I've been offered a gig as a sports radio type of guy. Didn't really take it just because even though I love sports, it kind of shrunk the amount of topics I could talk about, because you're on a sports station, they want you to talk about sports, and I've always been very open about talking about just about anything, whether sports, politics, entertainment, ufology, exopolitics, and just I like having that broad range of spectrum to be able to talk to people about and listen to their experiences. It's not just about what I want to talk about or hearing myself talk, even though I joke about it. I always like to hear others and listen to what they're going through. So whenever I'm on somebody's show, like your show tonight, for me, this is kind of like every time I go on an interview, I'm like, okay, this is neat, because I'm on the other side of the table, and I'm so used to being on the other side where I'm asking all the questions and whatnot. spectrum's a great deal, but the best part is just meeting different people and interacting with all these different individuals, and that's part of the lore for me.
You are what I call an easy, and you take it and run. And I am sure that you have interviewed people where you have to trying to pull information out of them is like trying to pull teeth at a dentist's office, and it's tough as hell. And you're thinking, I got this, whoever this person is, celebrity, whatever, the guest that you really want to be good. You want this guest to be good, and they're boring as hell. You are not boring as hell. Got to ask you this question, though. When you were younger, being a Latin kind of guy, did you catch crap for Limbaugh?
I still catch crap for that. And this is funny because my heritage, look, I'm Cuban. On my mother's side, I have Chinese, Indian, and black. We have a lot of black folks in our family, and my mom's side of the family. In fact, my brother's really my half brother. His father, which my dad raised him, but his father was a black man, and so my family is very mixed. My dad has Spain, Italian, and all born in Cuba. So I'm very, very mixed. But because of my listening to Rush over the years and a lot of conservative talk radio and whatnot, I've always been labeled like a Nazi, and I'm like, well, that's funny. I don't feel like a Nazi. I'm not a racist. I have, family members that know that I'm not racist that are darker than most of the people that are calling me a Nazi. So go figure on that. My brother's a mulatto, but just the association. I guess people look at you, oh, you must be a Nazi, racist, evil bastard, and I'm like, no, I'm a fat bastard, but I'm not evil. That's a bad stigma that a lot of folks that listen to Rush have. But to me, it's nonsense. People that have biased over stupid stuff that the media pushes on them, and that's really what I see it as. Rush has been somebody I've listened to for a very long time. He's not on my Rush, Mount Rushmore, and his name is Rush. I wouldn't put him on the Mount Rushmore like the other gentlemen. Mostly because I listen to them more than Rush, but he's one of the radio hosts that I listened to growing up, and I say also had a big influence. And ironically enough, the person who started Keith Rowland's, the gentleman who started the website for Art Bell, he also was the person who was working with Rush Limbaugh on his radio, years ago in the 90s. So it's ironic. I've become friends with Keith Rowland, who was the owner of Dark Matter Digital over the last decade, and he literally was behind the scenes working with Art and Rush back when I was a kid, listening to them growing up. So it's a weird way, but everything kind of comes back around and into a full circle, and it's just one of those weird things. But I did catch a lot of flack for it over the years. And I'm not even, right wing or left wing. I'm somewhere in the middle of the two. So I like to pull from both ends and like to hear both sides of the story. I will say this though, I probably will not be voting Democrat anytime soon ever again, just because of the nature of how demonic they've become over the last 10, 15, 20 years. I've seen it myself. And,
Exactly.
That's been the end of my tenure, voting for them.
Final question. Let's see, what do we got? We got 3 more minutes before the end of the hour. Final question. You do radio. People have definite opinions on this, so I wanted to ask you this question definitely before you leave. Podcast or live? What's your preference, podcast or live?
I prefer live.
There you go.
It's more real.
There you go.
Yep. Yep. It's more real. It's more spontaneous. If you mess up, you mess up. You got to, just keep it going. In fact, I don't really do much prepping for my shows. I kind of wing a lot of them and I do them all live. So.
Because I was told when I first got back here a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I used to work for KFBK. And that was before Morton Downey, and that was before Rush Limbaugh. And then I had a career, and I came back. I retired. 2 owners said, you ought to start with the podcast first. Get back into it. Don't do anything live that you might regret. First one, did live, never regretted it since. Ever. Period. End of statement. Angel Espino, I got to ask you a final question. A, loved having you here tonight. B, would you ever come back? Because I don't think I've tapped a fraction of what's in your wheelhouse.
Well, A, love being here with you tonight. It's been a pleasure on my end. And B, whenever you want to have me back on, all you got to do is ask.
Okay.
So, again, it's been a pleasure. And I'll tell you this much. If you set my mind, you might get lost. It's a deep, dark place inside the jackal's head.
But see, the funny thing was, somehow I sensed before the show that you got a story. You had a bunch of stories. And the nice thing about tonight for me was, yeah, you do. And I found some of them. And that's what I really appreciate. That's what I really enjoy about doing. I went somewhere with you that I didn't anticipate seeing, and that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy doing when I talk to people. So,
well, I understand that. Believe me, doing radio as long as I have. I've come across a few folks that I didn't expect them to go a certain avenue, and then when they do, I'm like, just keep talking. This is great.
It was fabulous. Angel Espino, thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for sharing your story. Tell us again one final thing. If they want to listen to your show or if they want to go to your network, where do they go for that?
Easy peasy. My website directly is Angel, Angel, Espino, ESPINO. I'm not psychic, but I do have ESP in my name. And angelespino.com. That's the main hub for everything that I do. You have all my podcasts in there. Let's see. And, of course, you can hear me live every Sunday night on psn-radio.com as well as soflowradio.com. And those are my two networks that I reside in right now. Of course, I used to do Dark Digital, but you can catch me on there every Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern to midnight.
Okay, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Good. I wanted to nail that down because I want to listen to you this coming Sunday. So, Angel Espino, thanks again, sir. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you, my friend. And everybody, please stay safe. I know we're doing terrible times right now, but everybody, I want to just, stay alive. And by all means, this year we got to write it out. But there's always a bright spot at the end of the tunnel. So, everybody, bless you for doing what you're doing. Keep doing a great job, my friend.
Thank you kindly. Folks, Angel Espino, we got to take a break. We're going to come back, and then I've got some happy stories. So don't go anywhere, okay, please?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative of the finest guests, packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern sense is common sense.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the unpleasant blind guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the unpleasant blind guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Yesterday was Memorial Day. Now, I get a little choked up every Memorial Day. I didn't serve in the military. People that have listened to this show know my story, and if you don't, it goes something like this. I was to have been drafted in the really late 60s. And I was anticipating going. And at that time, I was living in Ohio. And I had a very low selective service number. And I was prepping my life at the time to go. when you graduate high school, you have to go register with the Selective Service. And I did. And my father was in the service. And he said, you're going to get drafted. You may get an option as to whether or not you're going to go. You're probably not going to get an option as to where you're going to go. You might go Army. You might go Marines. That's probably where they will need you. So if I were you, I would start exercising. He started to get me prepped mentally for what it was that I was going to be facing shortly. His career had been in the military. My dad served in the U.S. Army Air Corps. And in 1948, it later became the U.S. Air Force. He served in World War II. He flew 35 missions over Germany for the 8th Air Force. The Air Force, in its infinite wisdom, sent him back. He completed all missions, obviously, or I wouldn't be here. And then they did what the Air Force does, which is something really brilliant when he flew B-17s. So let's make him a trainer in B-25 Mitchells and move him to Force Base in California, which is what they did, and that's how he met my mom. In the meantime, fully expecting that I was going to be drafted, nothing happened, and at the same time I thought, okay, I'm going to apply for college. If I get drafted, okay, then I'll not be. But I'm going to do both things at once. So I applied for college. Then the college accepted me. I went to a college initially in Ohio. Then my dad transferred from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We were living on base at the time. Transferred back to Sacramento, and I still haven't heard. Not a thing. So I was in college. Then I finally graduated. Then I ended up going with I had a degree, ended up getting into law enforcement. I've told you that story before. I did that for 41 years. So in lieu of being in the service, I spent 41 years in law enforcement. I worked for the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, a coastal sheriff's department in California, always spell it with a K, and then the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. And I don't tell you about the coastal county because there is something that occurred there that I generally don't share with many people because it's none of your damn business. It was a critical incident. I'll just leave it at that. Over this, though, every Memorial Day, I think about my dad who passed away at the age of 88 in 2009. And if you had any doubt whatsoever that what I call the American media maggots are foul and despicable, well, fret not, because this confirms it. The New York Times on Memorial Day weekend decided that that would be a perfect opportunity to hash the military for what they called white supremacists and white supremacism. So we're under the coronavirus orders, and they're all different, all changing. People are attempting to celebrate Memorial Day as best they can. So out comes the New York Times with an editorial over the weekend saying, perfect timing, because timing with them means everything. And this timing was not chance. This was purposeful. Their claim was the U.S. military celebrates white supremacy. The piece that the editorial board of the New York Times published is, why does the U.S. military celebrate white supremacy? The thrust of the article was, you got to rename military bases after American heroes, not racist traitors. What we happen to know now is the Department of Defense is essentially the biggest meritocracy on the planet. And it happens to be the most diverse. and the most powerful force for good in the history of the world. Just go back to World War II, because after America won and was fighting on two massively separate fronts, yeah, we took countries. We claimed land, didn't we? No, bullshit. We instigated the Marshall Plan. So on this weekend, the New York Times thinks that it's appropriate that they remind us the federal government embraced pillars of the white supremacist movement when it named military bases in the South. It talks about Fort Benning, Georgia, that the military base there honors Henry Louis Benning, a Confederate general who devoted himself to the premise that African Americans were not really human and could never be trusted with full citizenship. So on Memorial Day, that's what leftists want you to know about them. That's their priority. Naming or renaming bases. Then we have the acting DNI, Director of National Intelligence, who's stepping down, and I think it was just today, Radcliffe stepped in. Richard Grinnell leaves, and he ended up doing something kind of shocking. He declassifies a bunch of Flynn Kislyak call transcripts before he leaves his post. And let's see if we can have some audio on that. Are we? Okay. See, this again is where we have to do the refresh thing because I let it sit too long. It needs to marinate. And as it comes back up, let's hope that this is it.
Stories at this hour. Fox News contributor and Saul, welcome back here and good afternoon to you. A lot of these conversations, late 2016, during the transition period, will we see them? And if so, what do you think they'll show us?
I think you will see them, particularly the December 29th conversation between General Michael Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak about the Obama sanctions and the expulsions of diplomats. And I think that people, both sides will try to spin it, but I think people will look at it, fair-minded people, and say there's no way that these conversations were illegal or improper in any way. My God, he's the incoming national security. Now, I've heard there's some other documents that will shed light on how allegedly on how the intelligence information was manipulated to begin the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. I'm very interested.
Stop right there just for a second. There's more to come. This is, as I've said, the tip of the iceberg. We don't know a fraction of what I suggest. I hope we're going to discover.
So, fun things to come.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah. At the same time, you have Judge Sullivan now who's asking for a lawyer to come in and argue the case against why DOJ should go ahead and throw the case out against Michael Flynn. These stories are running.
I have never seen anyone in a judge's position act like this.
Concurrently, what is the judge up to and Judge Sullivan?
Well,
He's
first
a
of all,
leftist.
your viewers need to know this order from the D.C. Circuit, very, very unusual. And remember, there's a petition for writ of mandamus in front of the D.C. Circuit. That's an extraordinary remedy. It's almost never granted. And so this is filed by Michael Flynn's lawyer a couple of weeks ago, and the D.C. Circuit, the panel, issues an order personally to the judge and says, you have 10 days to respond on the following issue, which is the Fokker opinion, which I've talked about several times, which basically says to a judge, when the government files a motion to dismiss a prosecution, your function is ministerial and you have to dismiss. So I think what they're saying is, Judge, what are you doing? You better explain to us what you're doing. It's kind of I interpret it as a flashing neon sign, as a friend of mine said, or a wake-up call to him. Explain to us what you're about, because the moves he has made have been very, very unusual.
Okay, so what is Judge Sullivan's end game here?
He's a
Does he
leftist.
bring the lawyers in? Does he bring Michael Flynn in before his court? Could he do that?
Well, what you would normally expect to happen in this situation is certainly he's the judge. They have to have leave of court. He would hold some kind of a hearing. He could make some comments. If he didn't even issue an opinion. What under the law he can't do, I believe, is to drag the process out for months, which it looked like he was about to do. He appointed an amicus, which is highly unusual. He called for amicus briefs to be filed after for the last few years he said, I'm not going to accept any. So there's no question that what he seemed to be doing was delaying this process. And the court seems to be saying, the court, the higher court, the D.C. Court of Appeals seems to be saying, you're going against clear law here. What are you doing? You have to remember, Judge Sullivan is very popular among the bar in D.C. for some good reasons.
Yeah, listen.
He overturned the conviction in the Ted Stevens case. He helped expose the prosecutorial misconduct in this case. He became kind of a celebrity in legal circles for good reason, for basically forcing the government to start providing mitigating information. So he's kind of used to that celebrity status. And when he started to appoint this judge as an amicus, he was praised in the press. The only problem is the law doesn't let him do it. My friend said he's a celebrity, but he's a celebrity in trouble, and he needs a very good lawyer like Beth Wellwood doing.
Maybe by mid-June we get an answer on that. Quickly, I just said the Department of Justice today, they're putting a lot of pressure, successful on that, as we've seen a loosening and a challenge in different states across different faiths, Saul.
This is where we are right now. We're at asking mom and dad, if we can go to church. Can we go to church? You know what I need? It's 22 minutes after the hour. That's 9:22 here on the left coast. It's after midnight. It's midnight 22 on the right coast. So after enough of this, I need this, okay?
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's something critical. This is critical. OMG. You knew that carbon dioxide was bad. You knew that planes flying in the air were bad. You knew that people breathing was bad. Trees are good. Climate change, global warming. Were you aware that now there's a very serious concern by climate scientists about, wait a minute, if I only had a producer. There are serious concerns from credited scientists about oyster flatulence. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Plans to expand aquatic farming could have a serious knock-on effect on climate change. Climate experts have warned after new research revealed that underwater shellfish farts. Are you ready for this? You better be sitting down when I tell you this. I'm going to have to go back. Climate experts have warned after new research revealed, you had no idea, that underwater shellfish farts produce 10% of the global warming cases released by the Baltic Sea. 10% of the global warming cases in the Baltic Sea. In the Baltic Sea. Farts from oysters. Climate scientists. They're warning all of us. And to all those climate scientists,
You're a loony.
Yeah, what did you say? What did you call climate scientists?
You're a loony.
Thank you very much. So, those are happy stories and good times. So, just when you thought that you could get away with, oh, now you got to worry about Wuhan 19. Now you got to worry about oyster farts. Michigan Governor Whitmer says her husband's attempt to move boat up a queue was just a bad joke. So Whitmer said to Michiganders, stay in place. Stay in place, don't go anywhere. Except that her husband had a boat, you elitist, and went to a boat dock and said, hey, basically, my wife is the Michigan governor. Can I jump in front of the line? But what kind of response do you expect from that from a leftist? And that's this. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer said her husband's comments last week about moving up the boat queue to the head of the line, in which he asked if being married to the governor would help him move up in the line, they were a failed attempt at humor. Those leftists, those darn leftists, they're so funny. Well, I was talking about judges, and this is going to wrap up the first half hour. I want you to hear this. We heard about a judge who doesn't believe in the law. Now I'm going to read for you an opinion from a judge that does believe in the law. Because the people that are keeping us wrapped up in our homes, unable to conduct business, unable to live our lives, are leftist governors and mayors. Well, there's a judge in Clay County. This is in Illinois. Chief Judge Michael McHaney of Clay County had this to say at the conclusion of his case that he heard of Maynor versus Pritzker in the Clay County courtroom. Now, Pritzker, as you may not know, or if you do, you're in Illinois, he's the governor of Illinois. And this was his ruling in this case. Go to your favorite search engine, look it up. The guy's name is Chief Judge Michael McHaney in Clay County. These are his words when he wrote his opinion. Since the inception of this insanity, the following regulations, rules, or consequences have occurred. I won't get COVID if I get an abortion, but I will get COVID if I get a colonoscopy. Selling pot is essential, but selling goods and services at a family-owned business is not. Pot wasn't even legal, and pot dispensaries didn't even exist in this state until 5 months ago. And in that 5 months, they have become essential, but a family-owned business in existence for 5 generations is not. A family of 6 can pile in their car and drive to Carlisle Lake without contracting COVID, but if they all get in the same boat, they will. We're told that kids rarely contract the virus and sunlight kills it, but summer youth programs, sports programs are canceled. 4 people can drive to the golf course and not get COVID, but if they play in a foursome, they will. If I go to Walmart, I won't get COVID, but if I go to church, I will. Murderers are released from custody while small business owners are threatened with arrest if they have the audacity to attempt to feed their families. These are just a few examples of rules, regulations, and consequences that are arbitrary, capricious, and completely devoid of anything even remotely approaching common sense. States' attorneys in this state, county sheriffs, mayors, city councils, and county boards have openly and publicly defied these orders, followed by threats to withhold funding and revocation of necessary licenses and certifications unless you obey. Our economy is shut down because of a flu virus with a 98% plus survival rate. Doctors and experts say different things weekly. The defendant cites models in his opposition. The only thing experts will agree on is that all models are wrong and some are useful. This is an opinion from a judge. This is what you need to hear. Folks, this is what common sense sounds like from a judge. The Centers for Disease Control now says the virus is not easily spread on surfaces. The defendant in this case orders you to stay home and pronounces that if you leave the state, you're putting people in danger. But his family members traveled to Florida. This judge is talking about Governor Pritzker. His family members traveled to Florida and Wisconsin because he deems such travel essential. One initial rationale why the rules don't apply to him is that his family farms had animals that needed to be fed. Try selling that argument to farmers who have had to slaughter their herds because of disruption in the supply chain. This is his final paragraph. Please listen. When laws do not apply to those who make them, people are not being governed, they are being ruled. Make no mistake, these executive orders are not laws. They are royal decrees. Illinois citizens are not being governed. They are being ruled. The last time I checked, Illinois citizens are also Americans, and Americans don't get ruled. The last time a monarch tried to rule Americans, a shot was fired that was heard around the world. That day led to the birth of a nation consensually governed based upon a document which ensures that on this day, in this end, will always lose. And liberty, freedom, and the Constitution will always win. That is Judge Michael D. McHaney, M-C-H-A-N-E-Y, Clay County Court, Manor versus Pritzker, argued May 22nd, 2020.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using the Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right, we're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On ADL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the final 25. The final 25 minutes here on a Tuesday night. Well, now it's a Wednesday night. Well, on the left coast, it's still Tuesday. On the right coast, it's 12:37. And in Bolivia, it's 1749.725, subsector 3, Grote Cluster 2, because I could never get Bolivian time. It just never made any sense to me, but that's just me. We're going to continue on. I have this is the happy story for the week, because this points to truth with, we're talking a capital T.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
This is exactly what the leftists fear right here. The headline is, Democrats reportedly warning, pre-election economic surge could boost Trump. Wait a minute. Economic surge could boost Trump? You got it. So President Trump and the rest of the country, they're grappling with that economic shutdown, the one that's affecting everybody here. And I think we're at unemployment of 38 million persons. There are roughly 330 million people in the United States of America. So we're dealing with an economic shutdown and the Wuhan 19 virus. And this is what the Democrats are worrying about right now. They're worrying that what they consider to be a potential explosive economic recovery in the fall could revive Trump's lagging political fortunes and boost his chances at re-election. So what this said, now Politico revealed this. Politico is a leftist organ if there ever was one. And not worrying, this is the I'm telling you folks, said this, will continue to say this. The priority of the Democrats, ably abetted by leftists and the American media maggots, is not you, it's not blacks, it's not Hispanics, it's not the American taxpayer, it's not the average citizen. To them, you are proles, subjects. You are underlings. You serve them. They don't serve you. So You are not job one. You are not a priority. The coronavirus, Wuhan 19, is not a priority. Getting this economy back on track is not a priority for them. So is there... Most 5-year-olds can put it together that the Democrats are purposely holding out against science, which they love. Let me insert this programming note right now. Next Thursday night is going to be a 2-hour special report, an SHR Media special report about how leftists and the Democrats, ably abetted by the American media maggots, don't believe in science. And it's all about defeating Donald Trump. I'm going to provide you with every possible means to understand and to point out to all the various leftists in your loving life that just when they say it's all about science and understanding science, they don't give a fuck about science. It's all about making sure that OMB, Orange Man Bad, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, is not reelected. That's what it's all about. A top economist, a guy named Jason Furman, in the Obama administration, he's a Harvard professor. He told a bunch of policy makers, leftists, that we're about to see the best economic data we've seen in the history of this country. I was listening to Jeremy Hansen today. Great show. I've had him on my show. Jeremy Hansen firmly believes that we're going to get the Dow up to 32,000. Oh, we left it about 27, 28. And it broke. But you know what? It's not broken, and it came back despite all of this. And 38 million people being unemployed. We're coming back. This economy is coming back. And if there's one person who can do it, it's Donald John Trump. And if there are a group of people who will make sure that it is priority zero for them, it's any leftist, Democrat, or American media maggot, what I call the LDAM. And that's Biden's priority, to make sure that Donald John Trump does not get reelected. And in the meantime, that you suffer, especially people that don't deign to vote for him or the Democrats. So it's all about making sure that this economic rebound never occurs. Another NOQ report had the same article, essentially. I seldom, if ever, go there, but I noticed it when they had it. They said rapid economic rebound has Democrats terrified about November. Unlike last or past recessions, I should say, the coronavirus, the Wuhan-inspired economic downturn is not going to be followed by a slow recovery. Budget and economic people think that that is not going to happen, and that has leftists and Democrats petrified. Now, you know what a recession is? A recession is 2 subsequent quarters of a downturn. And then in economic terms, that can become a recession. I'm not convinced that we're going to be in a recession. Yeah, the economy is in a shambles right now. We know that. 38 million people are unemployed. Businesses are opening back up slowly. And it's not because they're obedient. It's because they want to have jobs and not lose everything they've worked for either years or decades and decades. They're taking precautions. Democrat, leftist, mayors and governors are still sending the cops after them. A bunch of consumers, they're still living in fear. Fear porn still abounds. But that's what the second quarter looks like. Now, the third quarter, that Obama guy that I mentioned, Jason Furman, when they're listening to him, he's not a Trump guy. Understand that. He's not a Trump guy. But even he is saying that the third quarter is going to be dramatically different, and it's going to have a major uptick. And what you will not hear is anyone talking about an economic uptick. Not on CNN, not on MSNBC. They have their jobs to do, and their jobs are to skewer OMB and never let him back into the Oval Office again, because if he acquires a second term, the other things that you're looking at will be, in my opinion, I think whoever's going to be the next president, whether it'll be the continuation of 45, which I think it will be, or it'll be a 46, that individual will have 2 openings in SCOTUS to take care of. And that's another thing that scares leftists and Democrats. Scares them. Now in chat, this is interesting. Jack Alexander in chat says, Biden's priority? Biden doesn't know what day it is. And do you remember what Biden said? Let's talk about Joe Biden just for a second. Joe Biden, I stopped poking fun at Joe Biden about 2 or 3 months ago. And people have asked me about that. Why don't you do that? He's addled. I am convinced that he is in the throes of dementia, which tells me how cravenly cowardly and cynical are his handlers, that they will prop a guy up that doesn't know what day it is just so that they can install him into the White House and somehow pull some kind of a machination or some kind of a Machiavellian event to whoever he has as his vice president to walk into the Oval Office and bing, they're going to be the new president. So you remember last week when Joe Biden said, he referred to black voters who haven't yet decided whether or not to support President Trump. And he said, you're not, essentially paraphrasing, you're not a black voter unless you support me or a Democrat. No black voter would ever support Trump. So then what does Biden do? He doubles down on that. This just came out today. So Biden then says today, Tuesday, well, it's still today for me, Tuesday, on that radio show, the dude that was interviewing him is called Charlemagne the God. So he says, Charlemagne the God on his own radio show, Biden says Charlemagne the God was being a wise guy during their interview last Friday when he said, well, you ain't black if you vote for Trump. So he says later, Biden says, okay, I made a mistake. However, he told CNN that he wasn't the only wise guy during the Breakfast Club interview. So Biden's words are, first, it was a mistake. Number one, and I was smiling when he was asking the question. I shouldn't have been such a wise guy. He was being a wise guy. And I responded in kind. What do you think if under a different situation, a Republican had said the same thing about, Republican voters? You're not a Caucasoid. You're not a fill in the stereotype unless you vote for Trump. Well, here's a happy story. It's good to know that some things don't change. In Chicago, the state of Illinois, governed by Governor Pritzker, during this past Memorial Day weekend, Chicagoans encountered the deadliest Chicago Memorial Day weekend since 2015, where 49 people were shot and 10 people were killed in Chicago. I guess some things never change. Then there's this. I call this a happy story, but it's kind of an end around. researchers in the United Kingdom, they're talking about Wuhan 19. They say that there's only a 50% success for a Wuhan 19 trial, but it's not for the reasons you're thinking. Developing a vaccine for the coronavirus could prove difficult due to this is what they're burying the lead. This is what needs to be in the lead. Developing a vaccine for the coronavirus could prove difficult due to the declining number of infections. Researchers in Britain have warned. They're warning you about this. And then there's this story. I think I got time for another audio cut. Yeah. There's this story. This is from the Western Journal. Now, everyone reveres the CDC here in the United States. Jack in chat, in SHR Media chat on Spreaker, was saying something similar to apparently YouTube or Facebook, Facebook, sent him nasty grams because what he was saying, though it's his opinion on his show, wasn't comporting with what the CDC and the WHO were saying. Well, wait a minute. Hold up on that car wash there, boys and girls. Here's a story right now from the Western Journal. The headline is CDC's latest best estimate of COVID death rate is 13 times lower than the initial World Health Organization claim. So it's a number that all of our Dr. Anthony Fauci, the demigod at the age of 78 that we all need to worship, and he informed all of these decisions that leftist governors and mayors made regarding Wuhan 19, 3.4%. So back on March 3rd, World Health Organization Director General Tedros made a remark during a media briefing that guided how everybody viewed Wuhan 19. While many people globally have built up immunity to seasonal flu strains, COVID-19 is a new virus to which nobody has immunity. That means more people are susceptible to infection and some will suffer severe disease. And then, he said, about 3 to 4% of reported COVID-19 cases have died. By comparison, seasonal flu kills far fewer than 1% of the infection of those infected. And of course, we know this was based on incomplete information. So, according to statistics based on data as of 4/29/20, the death rate from Wuhan 19 could be as low as let me say this properly, 0.26%. Not even 0.5%. The Democrats are scared shitless because their party is finally being exposed as lying, cheating, treasonous losers. They can't accept election results, and it's going to cause their loss in November. And 45 will be a 2-term president. I am convinced of that. And people themselves are starting to get fed up, and I completely understand what they're doing. When did this, per Fauci, and now Fauci says everybody's got to get back to work. We have to open up the country now. Are Democrats and leftists, the governors and the mayors, listening? So you got to ask yourself, when did this transition from flattening the curve to we have to find an absolute cure or everybody is going to die? Because that's what it is. That's the new normal now.
Business that I worked 25 years, sacrificed my life for, okay? For coronavirus, I'll take coronavirus over losing my business, okay? And I guarantee you, 99% of the people who are here will do the same thing.
We're losing our jobs, we're losing our mortgages, we're losing our businesses. It's not cool. It's not fun.
If you think the law is more important than kids getting fed, then please go ahead with your decision, but I'm not going to shut the salon.
You can't stay closed indefinitely. Imagine working for like a year, 5 years, 10 years, 2 decades.
Michael Portnoy.
Grinding your fingers to the bone to build a business. When did this become flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve to we have to find a cure or everyone's going to die?
I'm not a slave. I don't want the government giving me money. This is Michigan. We want to work. We want to work. Put us back to work. That's all we're asking. They asked us to flatten the curve. They said, stay home, stay safe. We obeyed. We did exactly what they told us to do.
People have jobs who've worked their whole f***ing lives off to put food on the table, create a happy living. They're just going to go out of business? They're going to wear... the mayors say, oh, you can go back to work? Work to what? Your company's going to be out of business. The economy's going to be in the shitter. There's going to be no jobs.
Now, who are hurting. Their businesses are shutting down. And we're talking about family, generational businesses that are shutting down. He had no choice. He had to open up. And so it's time to slowly and fast as we can open up as safe and as fast as we can these small businesses because they're going to fail.
Governor Newsom has gone too far. Governor Newsom.
How the f*** are you going to pay for your family, put food on the table, all that
I have to disagree with you, sir, when you say that I'm selfish, because feeding my kids is not selfish.
Let me stop right here for a second. I have to tell you this. I did a special report about a week and a half ago, and I quoted a particular governor code and a government code. In California, always spell it with a K, and I'm going to quote it again because this is the law. So anybody that wants to sue Governor Newsom or the state of California and you're within the sound of my voice, go to GC, California GC, Government Code 8627.5. It says, B, the orders and regulations shall be in writing and take effect immediately on issuance. The temporary suspension of any statute, ordinance, regulation, or rule shall remain in effect from the order or regulation until it is rescinded by the governor. The governor proclaims the termination of the state of emergency or for a period of 60 days, whichever occurs first. 60 days. Newsom declared the emergency on March 4th. Per this code, 87.5. His orders became invalid May 3rd. The executive orders that issued in connection to the March 4th declaration are invalid and illegal at this point.
My husband is on unemployment for the first time in our life, and it's unwillingly that we're taking unemployment. We want to go back to work.
Time for our state to be opened up. We're tired of not being able to buy the things that we need, go to the hairdressers, get our hair done. It's time to open up.
Like, what are you doing? You got to give these people a choice. If you told me, because of Corona, I lost Barstool, I had to go get a 9 to 5 and start over, I'd rather die of Corona, seriously. Or at least take my chances. I'm not saying everybody would do that. I would. But if I've dedicated 20 years of my life, I don't want to start over. I'll deal with Corona. You can't just make everybody stay inside and basically start over. It's insane. Like, what the do they think is going to happen? At some level, we've done what you've asked us to do. If you're that scared still of Corona, stay inside.
Stay home.
The beds are open. It doesn't kill everybody. I get it. It's not a great option. There are no great options. But you can't just decimate the entire economy. How the is that going to work? We're staying inside till there's a cure? When did that become the game? Who said we're getting a cure?
Staying inside until there's a cure for the cold.
Get the hell out of here. There's risk. We're Americans. You have to take risk.
It's nuts. It's insane. And I'm going to prove Thursday night that it is absolutely insane to do this, to subject Americans to this kind of to these conditions. It's absolutely nuts. Tune in Thursday night. You're going to hear 2 hours of science, 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 and insanity, rampant insanity by leftists.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzepp and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. Also by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras on my lovely little head are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be concerting in less than an hour. Thanks again tonight for Angel Espino being here for the entire hour. Thanks to everybody for being in chat. In chat? Yes, Chet Chabunski used to be my grocer. Thanks for being in chat. In the SHR Media chat and also in the Facebook chat. And also for that, thanks for listening in podcast. I get a lot of listenings, a lot of plays in podcasts. So thanks for doing that too. You could be someplace else. You're here tonight, and I appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Be safe. See you Thursday.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.